Hi, welcome to Buffzone, here at Liquor Mart, downtown Boulder, 15th and Canyon, home for all your tailgating needs. They got the Iowa State game coming up this week, Kansas State a week after that, last two home games of the year, so make sure you get by Liquor Mart here. I'm Kyle Ringo, this is Neil Woelk. We cover the University of Colorado Athletic Department for the Daily Camera newspaper, and all day today we've been at a press conference at the school announcing the firing of Coach Dan Hawkins. And Neil, how many coaches is this for you now?
Hold on a sec. Let's have a moment of silence for Dan Hawkins. Okay. Let's see. That was the fifth University of Colorado football coach that has left the program since I started covering. That includes Chuck Fairbanks, Bill McCartney, Rick Neuheisel, Gary Barnett, and now Dan Hawkins. So I guess number 6 is on his way.
Hey, you know, I just like to start off by saying that I thought the way that Dan Hawkins handled himself and everything that he had to say today was really professional, really classy, and I thought he went out on a very positive note, you know, just in every way.
First class.
Yeah, exactly.
First class. And I know there are a lot of people out there that don't like Dan Hawkins, and they use the term hate, and I'm not fond of that word. I think you save hatred for something really, really bad. But, Dan Hawkins went out in a first class manner today. He said that he realized it was time to take away from the negativity, that it was, that he knew it was time to step away and give the kids some support, get the fans back on the kids' side, and he realized that, and so he stepped away. And I think that was a class act by Dan. He said all the right things. He said thank you. He didn't lay blame at anybody's feet except himself. He said it was his responsibility to win games here. He didn't, and it was time to move on. So I thought that was a good thing on his part.
Oh, sticking with Dan for a moment, he also said that he fully intends to get back to coaching at some point, and that to me was interesting, because that signals to me that he's still, even though he's been through the ringer here over the past 18 months or so, he still does have the love for it and whatnot. And so it'll be interesting over the course of the next few months, maybe the course of the next year, to see where Dan Hawkins lands next.
It won't surprise me to see him take a year off. I think he'll probably take a year off, gather his thoughts, spend some time with the grandkids, do all that kind of stuff. But I certainly expect to see Dan Hawkins back in the coaching saddle. Dan's a football guy. He did not have success here, but Dan has won a lot of games in a lot of places. And I think Dan Hawkins at some point will be hired as an assistant coach at a college. He may decide he wants to go back to small college coaching and do that. But I think Dan will be back coaching, and he's got plenty of career ahead if he wants to.
Now, obviously, they haven't finalized the separation agreement with Dan. We've figured out that they owe him probably roughly right around $2.5 million. There are some things in his contract that are negotiable, and so that's what they're doing. CU attorneys, Dan Hawkins representatives will be negotiating that, and we'll probably find out exactly what the final tab is, for firing Coach Hawkins sometime in the next few weeks here. But now they got to move on to who's the next coach.
Yeah, I think that's the question on everybody's mind. That's what everybody wants to know is who leads the Colorado Buffaloes into the Pac-12. That's the number one question.
The very first guy on the top of everybody's list, because he's said he has interest in the job, and because he's a legend at Colorado, is obviously Bill McCartney. He's 70 years old, and he's been out of the game for 16 years, but he has made it known that he wants to get back in, and he still has the passion to coach and wants to restore the Colorado program, to the glory that he left it after the 1994 season. What are your thoughts about Bill McCartney and his ability to come back here and do that?
I think anytime you've been away from a business for 16 years, it's not easy to catch up. I don't think it'll be a snap for Bill McCartney if he's the guy. But certainly I do think Bill McCartney has the passion. I think he was a great football coach at the University of Colorado, the best that the university ever had. Did a terrific job, hired great assistants. If you look back at his assistant coaching staff, he brought along guys that became head coaches. So I think that's a very viable candidate. The only thing I've been writing and suggesting is do not settle on Bill McCartney before you look for anything else. And I'm not suggesting they would be settling on Bill McCartney, but make sure that you have looked at every other coach possible, at every avenue, explore all possibilities, and then make your decision. And if you come back to the point that you say Bill McCartney is your best guy, by all means hire him.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, they have to do their due diligence. It's you know, the law, the way things operate up there. They have to have a search committee. They have to look at a lot of candidates. I mean, they have to explore, and I think they really, truly do have to explore this time the opportunity to hire a coach of color. We all know how few coaches, black coaches in particular, have received opportunities over the years in major college football, and I think that's something they really have to take a hard look at. If you know, particularly guys who are qualified and ready to make that step, they have to really examine that. And I mean, this is a program or a school that got a D from the Black Coaches Association the last time they went through this process. So that's something they have to take a look at. But I'm with you on the McCartney thing. I'm not sold that McCartney is the answer, but I could definitely get on board with that as long as they go through the process, have it be a legitimate process, and if they come back to Bill McCartney being the best option, then Bill McCartney it is, and more power to Bill.
No problem with that at all. No problem with that at all. You were talking about black head coaches. Bill McCartney was one of the best at hiring black assistant coaches who went on to become head coaches. At one time in the United States, in Division I football, 3 or 4 of the black head coaches in America came from Bill McCartney's staff. And I'm talking about Carl Durrell, Bob Simmons, now I'm drawing blanks on the other guy, Ron Dickerson was a head coach, and Jimmy Caldwell. All 4 of those guys came from Bill McCartney's staff.
That's actually pretty impressive, but it didn't surprise me that you forgot about it, because we all know you're getting up there.
I'm getting up there. I've been around here way too long, but when you look at what Bill McCartney did in that regard, and I know that during his tenure he was very proud of the fact that at one time he had 5 black assistant coaches on his staff, was more than any other Division I team in America. You
know, there's some other interesting names that have been brought up. And I've been led to believe that some of them are legitimate. The one that springs to mind instantly is Les Miles at LSU, and that is very surprising to me, considering LSU is a top 10 team right now, you know, has a chance to win an SEC title, maybe even play for a national championship, and you're talking about the coach of that program possibly being available to move to Boulder, where things haven't been going well for a long time. And obviously Les has a history here in Boulder, and from what I've heard from people down in our profession and down in, you know, in Baton Rouge, there's a feeling maybe in the Les Miles family that they wouldn't mind getting out of the pressure cooker a little bit down there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you know, Les is a little bit tired of the SEC, you know, the win at all costs in the SEC. If you don't win a national title in the SEC, you haven't done a good job. And I think Les, you know, from what I hear from some of his friends, that he would be willing to take a look at Colorado if indeed this year doesn't turn out great for him. But we're just talking about a guy that just beat Alabama, and like you said, could be playing for the SEC title and maybe even the national title. So I think that's a long shot, but it's certainly a name that's going to pop up.
You know, a lot of people are making a big deal about how they believe Colorado needs to come back from where it's at right now after 5 years of Dan Hawkins, and bring somebody in with ties to the program, with CU history behind them. And I'm not sure I'm on board with that. I'm not sure I agree with that line of thinking, and I know you definitely don't. But here's my point. I kind of feel like the guy who's getting overlooked, who might deserve some real, in fact, I think he does deserve some genuine consideration, is the guy they're going to put in the job for the next 3 weeks, the next month. Brian Cabral. If there is anybody who deserves some consideration with some CU ties, it's Brian Cabral. He's been here the entire time. He's served under, what, 4 different head coaches now? Yeah. If he stays around, the next guy will be his 5th. He's been in the college game for the last 20 years, never left. He knows all the rules, knows all the recruiting ins and outs.
He knows Boulder. Right. He knows the administration. Brian Cabral played for a national championship, or coached a national championship team in 1990. played for a Super Bowl champion in 1986 or 1985. Sorry, Bears guy. Brian Cabral knows what it takes to be a winner. He has coached some of the best linebackers that ever played the game of college football, including people like Alfred Williams, including people like Matt Russell, Ted Johnson, Greg Beekert, the long list of linebackers. Brian Cabral, I agree wholeheartedly, definitely deserves serious consideration as the opportunity to become a candidate for the next head coach at CU.
All right, we're getting a little bit long-winded with this episode, but just go and go ahead and throw out a couple more names that you think will get some consideration.
Well, I think the people are talking about a Mike Leach, and I think they might see if Mike Leach has any interest in it. There's a guy that won at Texas Tech, Jim McElwain at Alabama, offensive coordinator who has West Coast ties, worked out at Fresno State. I mean, those are two names that come up right away.
Troy Calhoun at Air Force might be back in the market. They were thinking maybe earlier this year he had maybe coached his way into some bigger opportunities, but I think they
might, that you definitely want to look at.
Yeah, they might want to talk to Troy.
So I think there are going to be more and more names coming up here over the next few weeks. I think you're going to see a lot of rumors and a lot of things happen, but I do hope they get it done within the next month or so and then move on.
I talked to Phil DiStefano on the phone today. I talked to Mike Bone in person, and I came away with the impression that they truly don't have an idea of who their next coach is right now, and it's going to be an interesting next 3 or 4 weeks to see how this all plays out.
The perfect coach at the University of Colorado is the next Jim Harbaugh, whoever he is. I have no idea if there's one out there, but a guy that can go into a place like Stanford and win. That's the next best coach. So they just got to find the next Jimmy Harbaugh. That's easy.
All right.
Done deal.
Well,
oh, yeah, they play Iowa State this weekend.
Iowa State, the Cyclones. Saturday. There's still tickets available. You can come.
Yep. See you there.